calling the Norfolk School Committee to order. Today is September 10th, 2024. I'm going to begin this meeting, as we always do, reading our mission statement. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provide an education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens of our ever-changing world. I have a roll call, please.
Peter.
Lauren Vivas.
Grace Lockhead.
Medora Champagne.
Lisa Shelton.
Victoria Saldana.
Ingrid Alerty.
So the first item on our agenda is public comment. It looks like we have one person who's ready to speak to us tonight. Just want to do a quick overview of the public comment. At the start of each scheduled school committee meeting, we have a 15-minute public comment period where the public is free to address the committee. All speakers are encouraged to present their remarks in a respectful manner, and if they could begin by stating their name, town, and you would have, now because there are 4 or less people speaking, you would have up to 3 minutes to present your remarks. You can speak about anything you want. It's not really a back and forth session, but if you'd like to come up.
Maybe if you can speak to that mic so Kat can get the...
Is there a chair? You can probably sit here.
Yeah.
3 minutes. Speak to you for 3 minutes. I can do that. All right. So my name's Eric Darling, Norfolk is the town. So I don't want to steal any of the thunder that's going to be here, but I basically just wanted to come in and talk about the considerations for the new school. So we've seen numbers over several years now about how things are growing. You can talk to any teacher in the schools, and they talk about how there's more and more kids in these classrooms. So this is not a problem that's going away. I was just scanning through some of the slides, and I was a little bit taken aback by how much the price has increased year over year over year. And we don't want to kick this can down the road. Our town's already done that with the fire and police station. We don't want to do that again. This committee is here not only for our students in our community that's here right now, but also for our future community. You know, from a fiscal perspective, from an educational perspective, we need more space. There's just no other conclusion here. Again, don't want to steal the thunder of the presentation, but I did want to put that on record. Please, we thank you for all your service. You've done a lot of work on this. I know a lot of consideration on this. You have a lot of considerations overall, but I do encourage you to move this forward to the town with a positive recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is correspondence. We have nothing to share tonight. So we'll move to the school committee chair report. We have to, we get to approve some very generous gifts. You'll see in the packet we have a gift from the PTO of $6,762 for a Rigby reader set. Another gift from the PTO for $800 for chorus stipends. A gift from the Special Olympics of Massachusetts of $500 to HOD, a gift from the Special Olympics of Massachusetts of $500 to Freeman Kennedy, and another gift from the PTO of $855 for a math fact lab for grades 1 and 3, which are both for HOD and Freeman Kennedy. So I would be looking for a motion to approve the school gifts as stated.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
No, except thank you so much.
A huge thank you for these generous gifts. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Great. We'll move it on to you.
All right, so it is always a pleasure in the first meeting in September to be able to give the school committee an opening of schools report. We started the school year with our teachers back on Monday, August 26th. It was a great first day. We did something a little bit different this year. So our teachers participated in team building activities. We ran the first ever Norfolk Amazing Race. All of our staff were divided into collaborative teams and were given a series of 10 different challenges to complete before the end of the day. And those involved various learning activities, looking at the new IEP form, having a chance to explore some of the new ELA material, as well as other creative challenges. There was a lot of singing and dancing and all kinds of different things. It was really a lot of fun. At the end of the day, we awarded gold, bronze, and silver medals to our teams that placed first and completed all 10 challenges. And then per the contract, the teachers did have the second part of the day to work on setting up their classrooms, getting ready. Some had meetings to attend, others had different things that they were engaged in with colleagues, so it was really a nice first day. Students started with us the following day on the 27th, so students in grades 1 to 6 arrived. As always, in the first couple of days, our buses are a little bit behind schedule because people are at the bus stop taking first day photos and all of that. So, but they arrive very quickly. We always have all staff out on the first day so that we can make sure we're welcoming kids as they get off the bus. We can make sure kids find their classrooms. Sometimes kids are nervous, so there's lots of people around to kind of scoop kids up and help them make sure they get settled in smoothly. So that went really very well. Our kindergarten students have a staggered start, so it's a little bit different. On the first day of school for students in grade 1 to 6, the kindergartens come with their parents just to see the classrooms, meet their teachers, and get acclimated. The following day, we have a staggered start, so half of the class came on Wednesday, so that our teachers have a much smaller ratio. They can really spend individual time helping kids get adjusted. Second half of the class came on Thursday, and then the full class came together after the Labor Day weekend. This year we did have all of our families register their students for transportation. As you probably remember from the budget discussions, we were really trying to maintain the 14 buses that we had bid out. The bus contract came in a little bit higher than we had budgeted for, so we were trying to avoid having to add buses, knowing that many of our students that we assigned bus seats don't ride. So we did a registration process, and then we assigned seats to all the families that registered. We were able to keep with the 14 buses. None of our buses are at capacity. Some are fuller than others, but none are over the capacity limit. That went fairly well. We did have some glitches last week. We had a couple of buses that were late departing from our school to go home. Connect Ed messages were sent out to let parents know that the buses were behind schedule. But that was really probably attributable to the fact that KP started last week and Franklin Public Schools started last week. And we share a route. So the drivers driving and learning their high school routes were late to complete those and late to arrive. We're monitoring that closely to make sure that that comes back in line, but we expect that it will. The other things that I wanted to share with the committee is that obviously a new Connect Ed message went out. So this is information that we had after the packets went out. So on Friday, September 6th, we did receive notification from the state that we will have some students enrolling in the Norfolk schools from the Bay State Respite Shelter. Currently, there's 12 students that are residing at the shelter that we anticipate are eligible to enroll. We expect that we will see families that opt to enroll coming in over the next week. We have been working collaboratively with the L teachers that we hired over the summer, as well as our existing staff, to fine-tune our program plans. We anticipate everything that we presented at the public forum in terms of our enrollment plans and how students will enter school and transition will be as we presented to the public at that community forum. We have been involved in meetings with the state since that time, just to make sure everybody is aware. Both Lisa and I have been on those meetings and have communicated clearly with the state and with our representatives concerns over the changing profile. It's very difficult to plan for a situation when when you're planning for something and then you get new information and that shifts. So we have also advocated for restoration of some funding. We had received a grant for $40,000 to support our planning efforts, offset transportation costs over the summer when the shelter changed to a respite and we weren't anticipating enrollment. The Department of Ed withdrew that grant funding. I have since been notified as of last night that they are restoring $20,000 of that $40,000 grant. That is in alignment with the way that grant's been distributed. So you're eligible for up to $20,000 for every 20 students you have. When we wrote it originally, we anticipated possibly 40 students. Now we only have 12, so we're only eligible for the first 20,000. As a reminder, we did hire over the summer 2 additional English language learner teachers, licensed teachers, and we retained those staff positions. So we are prepared and staffed to support the language needs of any new students enrolling, as well as program needs. We did not continue with the hires. We had intended to hire paraprofessional staffs, a family shelter liaison. Those positions aren't needed at this time, and we didn't continue with that. It is very frustrating that there have been changes, but we are confident in our ability to meet the needs of all of our kids, and we will continue to make sure that we are providing an excellent educational experience for every student that enrolls in Norfolk.
I have a quick question, too.
Sure.
Sorry, how does those children coming here, how does that impact the buses? I know we just talked about the buses. Are we adding additional bus for that?
We're working on that now. So we have talked with Holmes. They are currently looking to see how they're going to structure that. They don't have a driver. They're looking to hire an additional driver. And then for that route, they would charge us the bus per diem rate for the times that we need that. So it's not finalized yet, but Holmes is working on it. Yeah. Questions?
A few questions. When are the 12 starting?
So there are 12 students eligible to enroll, but as of yet, they haven't enrolled. We are working to make sure that we have translation services available for families when they come to enroll. So we have secured someone that is able to provide that translation, and we're letting the shelter know when we'll have a translator available. If those students come and register and we are able to set up transportation in a timely way, then we would expect that they would begin next week.
Next week, okay.
Yeah. And then it'll be a week out. We're only bringing new students in on Mondays because we know that when students first enter, they're going to spend primarily the first couple of days in a bridge classroom where we can evaluate their academic needs as well as their language needs. So in order to staff that and make sure that that's fluid, we're only bringing new students in on Monday. So if students didn't come, till later in the week, it might, by the time we get transportation and all that in place, it could be a week out. But we expect those that enroll this week to potentially start sometime next week.
Okay. And right now, there's not enough information to know kind of the predictability of how often new students will come or how many?
No, I would say that what we know so far is that the shelter granted 30-day extensions to families based on pre-established circumstances. The majority of families that received those had imminent housing, so signed leases for housing or plans to move in with other family or friends in other places. So they had imminent housing established. Some of those leases and plans have fallen through. Those that did have executed leases, most of those students are enrolling in the district where those children will be going, and the state is supporting that transportation because the intent of McKinney-Vento is educational stability. So if a child is relocating to Worcester, Springfield, or another district, for that child's best interest, it's better to start and remain in the same school. But for families who are in different circumstances or who don't have, or whose leases may have fallen through or for other reasons have that extension, the students would be encouraged to enroll if they're at the shelter beyond 10 days.
And we have space for additional 12 here, right?
We do. The 12 is divided between the two schools, majority at each Olive Day. Some of the students are kindergarten age, and kindergarten is optional. We encourage families to participate in our kindergarten program, but it is optional for kindergarten students, so we don't know the net number, but we do have a space at the H Olive Day. It is a smaller classroom space. It wouldn't be a classroom that can accommodate 20 students, but it is a classroom that can accommodate small group instruction. So we have a space there, and we do have a designated space at the Freeman Kennedy.
So if we have another group of students coming in addition to, let's say the 12, all 12 come and enroll, and we go over 12, are we able to accommodate? Do we know how many we can accommodate beyond the 12?
Well, in that particular classroom space, I would have to look at it again, but I would think we could probably have 15 students in that classroom pretty easily. But we're also looking at I don't expect the numbers to go up because I think in the second round, the state is looking at the criteria for granting extensions, and they're looking to problem solve some of the reasons that leases did not, leases fell through. So with the tighter criteria, again, as new families come in, if these students leave, new families come in, they're there for 5 days. they can get a 5-day emergency extension, but they wouldn't be applying for the 30 days until after being at the shelter for 10. So there'd be a time period between students leaving and new students coming before they would be enrolling with us. So we don't, we're monitoring it closely. We're working collaboratively. We meet with the state every Thursday. I certainly will update the committee if new information becomes available. If we had to look at alternate space, we would have to work through what we're going to do to address that. But at this time, I don't anticipate we're going to need it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Next, you have a copy in your packet. I'm not going to go through it, but every year that our Human Resource Director, Roxanne Bordeaux, provides the committee with a list of staffing changes, so all of the new hires that the district brought on, existing staff that changed positions, as well as retirements and people who left the district, whether it was for moves or other purposes. So you should have an updated staffing change list. If anyone has questions on it, happy to answer those. All right, great. And then the next, we have a presentation tonight from the School Building Committee. I don't know, Grace, if you want to introduce the committee members and give the presentation?
Yeah, sure. So the School Building Committee, we first met, I can't believe it, I just looked back, January 30th. So we have been at this for a while. I want to thank the members. It's myself and Medora from the school committee. We have Jason Whalen, Mike Ryan, Mike Lucarello, obviously Ingrid, Justin Casanova Davis, and Justin Tebow from AI3, who has been partnering with us along the way. I think it has been a lot of work, and I really appreciate especially our community members who have joined us and really helped us think through this in a really thoughtful way. So with that, I will hand it, I think, to Ingrid to kick off.
Sure.
And we will get started.
You have copies of the slides, but for the public, we have slides up. So we wanted to start with giving an overview of the timeline of the project. So I was kindly reminded by a member that not everybody has been in this process with us throughout the past several years, so it would help to give an overview. So the Building Committee and Space Concerns started way back in 2017. At the time, there were a lot of new construction, housing developments, and projects going up all around Norfolk. And the biggest concern and complaint we had from parents was how are we going to accommodate all the new growth in town in the existing structure. So in response to that, back in 2017 in April, we formed a space study committee that was comprised of members of the town, the town administrator at the time. I think we consulted with Ann Proto from the rec department, the building inspector, facilities director, and then school staff. And we began to look at what would possibly be options that the district could consider that would be cost effective and efficient in terms of meeting the new enrollment and growth. In November of that year, the Building Space Study Committee made a recommendation to the select board and to the town that we pursue a high-level conceptual design study to examine whether or not we could accommodate the growth both at the H. Olive Day and at the Freeman Kennedy in one building addition. So we looked at the possibility of moving the preschool students over to the first floor and housing the additional classrooms from 3 to 6 on the second floor of a building addition. The reason we considered that, when the Freeman Kennedy School was first built, it was built as a model school. So the plans for expansion and for making the school, making those plans available to potential districts that were looking to save costs on design services were in place. So we knew there was a potential for creating an addition that would link the two back wings of the building. So the town at the fall town meeting voted to appropriate funding for a preliminary conceptual design study. We bid that out and we hired Flansburgh, who did the original design work on this building, and they conducted a conceptual design study, met with staff, did a space assessment of the needs, looked at what the future growth needs would be. We also contracted with NESDEC and did a demographic study so we could really look at what those projections were like over the next 10 years. And then in the October of 2018, Flansburgh presented their results to the school committee and then also to the select board in 2019. After that preliminary conceptual design study was completed and we knew it was feasible we could accommodate the enrollment demands and the space needs in that addition, we brought that project forward to the school committee and to the select board to vote to allow us to apply to the Mass School Building Authority for shared cost participation. So we filed a grant application to MSBA to see if they would be willing to cost share the price of the building addition at FK. Unfortunately, we were declined at that first round of applications. There's a lot of schools, as you can imagine, across the Commonwealth that have some critical needs. I was just looking a couple of days ago at the projects accepted this round for core building projects, and you have schools that were built in the 1950s in that category. So we weren't prioritized. We decided at that time not to bring forward the full project to the town because we felt it was worth delaying one more year and trying again with MSBA to see if we had better odds the following year. So again, that required a new vote of the school committee and the select board. We submitted a second application to MSBA in 2021, again declined. We were in the midst of a lot going on at the time. We agreed to delay again, and we tried one last time to submit to the MSBA in the spring of 2022. Again, we were declined from that project. COVID had happened during those periods of time. Obviously, many buildings that had critical infrastructure, HVAC needs, were prioritized during those rounds of applications. So as a result, in the spring of 2022, we updated the enrollment study. With NESDEC, we wanted to make sure that the numbers that we were looking at were consistent and hadn't changed. And we brought forward a recommendation to appropriate funds for a feasibility study to move forward the project on their own. The town voted at town meeting to appropriate, and I might be off a little bit, it was about $300,000. Am I close, Justin? It was in that ballpark for the full feasibility study to look at an expansion project at the Freeman Kennedy. That included very detailed looks at site work, traffic studies. Do you want to jump in, the other parts that were completed?
Yeah, so to elaborate a little bit, Justin Tebow with AI3, for those of you who don't know me, I'll be standing up very shortly. But the study that was done by Twinsburg initially was a high-level test fit. What do you need for approximate spaces? The study that Superintendent is alluding to once we were on board is more of a deep dive. Okay, now that the project is moving forward, what specifically is needed, the nuts and bolts. So more educational visioning and programming occurred to really refine and hone in on the scope of the project. So through that process, we ultimately came up with the feasibility study a year ago, approximately, for the permanent option.
Great. We, at that time, had planned to bring forward the recommendation for requesting design service funding and moving forward the full brick and mortar project at that time. At the Springtown Advisory Board presentation, there was some concern because the cost of the project had gone up since 2019, and the town had already moved forward with a fire station project as well as a tri-county vote that was coming up, and there was concerns about the town finances. And so we were asked if we could step back and make sure and reconsider, were there any other viable options that would be less costly for the town to accommodate the anticipated future growth. So what we did was the school committee voted to withdraw their warrant article, which was asking for the design funds a year ago May, and to ask for funds for an expanded scope feasibility, to explore modular options and to see if there were any other possible things worthy of further study, such as a third building site, leasing space, things like that. So that went to the fall town vote. The town meeting vote appropriated funding for a second round of feasibility to explore those other options, as well as to establish a building committee to oversee that work and come forward with a final recommendation. So that is bringing us to tonight, and we are here to talk about the final recommendation and the expanded feasibility study. Just so you can see, we did have language that explained what the school building charge would be, and it was to undertake a feasibility study to explore the feasibility of modular solutions to the enrollment growth and overcrowding in the Norfolk Public Schools, To review and evaluate and select a new demographer to conduct a new demographic study. So we had 2 prior studies completed by NESDEC, and we wanted to get a different lens. So develop bid specs, bid that project out, or select a company to complete a brand new study with a new set of eyes. To review the results of the extended feasibility study and make recommendations to the Select Board and the Norfolk School Committee for the best option of accommodating that increased enrollment, and that we would consider both cost and educational needs in making that determination. So that was the charge for the committee. Process-wise, members applied to the Select Board. The Select Board conducted interviews and appointed our 3 community reps per the town bylaws. And also the town bylaws require 2 members from the board that is participating in the project, as well as the town administrator and the superintendent. Because it's a school building, it would be the department head if it was another project. So again, the scope of work, we conducted a new demographic study of the town. Those results were presented at a joint meeting of the school committee and select board. That's available on Norfolk Cable TV if anybody wants to see the demographic presentation. And then we collaborated with AI3 to look at modular options. We looked at 3 modular options and then repriced the brick and mortar option as part of this. We looked at cost estimates associated with all options. We talked about the educational programming impact of each of the options, and then at our last meeting finalized the recommendation for the school committee. Just to give you a quick snapshot of enrollment growth in the schools, back in 2014, we were looking at a total student body of just over 820. Projecting out based on the enrollment studies, we are going to be close to almost 1,020 for 2024, 25, and that enrollment growth is predicted to continue to grow over the next 10 years at both H. Olive Day and at the Freeman Kennedy. Just a snapshot by building. You can see, and this is really supported in the demographic study that we had done, the growth in HOD has been significantly faster over the last few years. So you will see from 2014 to 2025, we're up almost 100 students at the H. Olive Day, which is significant in that, and we've been talking for a number of years about the fact that we have lost the music room, we've lost the computer lab, we are repurposing many spaces. Happy to give a tour to anyone interested to see that building. At the FK school, we're up about 40 students. We had a little dip in enrollment in the middle of that period. We started with 530 in 2014. There was a drop, and now it's recovered, and we're 40 students more. So district-wide, we're up about 135 students. What the demographic study showed is that when students enroll with us, they stay with us. And the largest driver of new growth in the district is the kindergarten. So we have a lot of new families coming in, and our kindergarten and first grades have grown fairly significantly. This year, for the first time since I've been here in 2012, we have 9 first grade classrooms. We've had 6 in the past, so you can see the growth there. And as these children age up and are coming up through the Freeman Kennedy, the growth at the Freeman Kennedy is being impacted by the new students, and we are maintaining those higher level classes coming into the kindergarten. Again, this just shows you a picture of the DA, high-level demographic forecast that shows the continued growth and expansion through 2034. That full study of the demographic report is also available online. I'm going to turn it to Justin, and I'll give you back the clicker.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'm going to snag the clicker. So, taking all that information, so we've been here a year ago or so, did the initial feasibility study for the brick and mortar, and then we're back again this evening. One of the items that Superintendent mentioned is that updated demographic study, the increased enrollment, and one of the charges for the building committee is, okay, with those updated numbers, does it impact any of the previous work that we did? So one of the first tasks for the team was to actually take a look based upon all the previous information from the 2023 feasibility study and confirm that that was still accurate. So after analyzing all the numbers, all the updated enrollment projections, it has been confirmed that what was previously presented and provided for the previous feasibility study in 2023 is still relevant. So it's still 33 classrooms at Freeman Kennedy, 6 new, 27 existing, 7 pre-K classrooms, for the addition component, and then that area is approximately 36,000 square feet. That's not just classrooms, that's all your support spaces, that's all the other amenities and requirements that are needed just to support those components. So, what was previously shown is the exact same guidelines that we've set, that the building committee set moving forward. What's up on the screen is a matrix of all the different options, starting from the left side, working the way to the right. So the left side is the overview of the permanent building option. Again, this is what was developed a year or so ago as the permanent building option. The other three options were the task of the committee to work through in collaboration with the design team to ensure all options were explored. So permanent building option here. Next one over is modulars option 1. This is the option that we really tried to make as close apples to apples comparison with the permanent building option. So it's located in approximately the same location, again, connecting the two wings out back here on that access road out the back. You can see it's a two-story option, or it is a two-story option, you can't see that from here. Two-story option similar to the permanent building addition, and again, that's to minimize footprint within that component. Modular option 2, the next one over, is keeping that same configuration, but putting it outboard of that perimeter access road. So there's a lot of underground utilities and site work within that back zone over there. So the committee wanted to explore, okay, does it make sense to locate the new build beyond those to not disrupt some of the previous work? So it's still a two-story option, and you can see it's the L shape to fit within the open space that's already out back over there. And then the third option for modulars is a one-story option. What does that look like? How does that impact it? So it's that 36,000 square feet, but instead of 18,000 on the first floor, 18,000 on the second floor, it's 36,000 square feet on one level. It would not fit out back where the other two options explored, so this option lands itself on the field actually in front of the building, as you can see with the diagram over there. So some high-level components, and then that matrix will come back with associated costs for each of these configurations. The permanent building option, this option is directly connected to your existing building. So you can walk right through. There'll be no doors, there'll be no sort of steps, anything like that. You walk from one building to the next, don't have to go outside. This option does redirect the service road. So as I mentioned, it's on that service road area out back, so there would be work out back to redirect the service road, and there would be minimal trees removal required because the new addition is tucked close to the existing building. This is the first floor plan that was previously developed. I know there's a lot of information here, and I'm not going to go over all of it by any means. The big key takeaways for what this is intended to show is that anything in this red dashed line here, where does it look like this? Anything within this red dashed line, that is the new build. Again, connecting the existing 5-6 wing and connecting the existing 3-4 wing up at the top. Two-story option. First floor would be the earliest component, the pre-K component. So that's the classrooms, that's their nurse, that's the special education component and suite, really creating that admin presence over there within this. So that makes up the first floor. We go to, I bumped the screen, so. We go to the second floor. We go to the second floor. This is where grades 3 through 6 are located. And again, it's additional classrooms to support the enrollment growth. Additionally, it's spaces that are identified to actually bring back that have been lost due to overcrowding and reconfiguration of the existing. So for instance, your existing science lab, or the science lab that was originally designed for this building, is not utilized as a science lab. It's utilized as another type of space. So this addition would locate a science space over there.
The science lab is currently a classroom.
Science, exactly. Art classroom would be located over here. STEAM classroom over here. The teacher collaboration space, it's located right up there, is small and it can't accommodate the entire staff. So it's really minimizing how much collaboration the teachers can have. This addition component allows a properly sized space to be provided. So the reason why I'm talking about how some of these sort of lost spaces are now regained over there is what it does is it takes all of the spaces in green and it frees them up for adjustments. So part of the exercise that I alluded to earlier, the visioning and the global look at the whole school, is where does it make sense to put the speech office? Where does it make sense to put the psychologist? All the special student services. Not down one wing of the building. They need to be centrally located for all students to easily access. So you can see here, centrally located, speech spaces, social worker office, psychologist, centrally located, not down the 5th grade corridor or the 3rd grade corridor. And by utilizing those center spaces that were previously undersized for what they were originally designed for, it allows the flexibility and allows this to be looked at from a global, bigger picture. So.
And Justin, if I can just clarify, because I know we've had questions from the community in the past. With the addition on the 2nd floor, we are not creating new classrooms that don't currently exist. So, for example, the science lab was located in the 6th grade wing. We used to use that for science instruction. It's now a classroom. By building the science classroom back into the building, that can become another 6th grade, and we can keep all the grade level classes together. So when he talks about the art room, that would be taking the art room out of a grade level wing, putting it in a central space so that that grade level could, so it's moving classrooms, not creating new spaces. Teacher planning room is a small group classroom now, so creating that. So it's repurposing and reorganizing, right, but not really expanding.
Yep, exactly. So how does that fit within the site? You can see the existing building in gray. This would be that new permanent addition, sort of bridging the two wings of 3, 4, and 5, and 6. The access road would be reconfigured, and then the site has been treated to actually create a separate pre-K component. Pre-K entry and drop-off, required pre-K play. That way, that schedule and that shuffle within the morning and the afternoon is isolated from the other students at the front of the building. So as you can see here, creating a loop road, creating parking spaces directly adjacent to that pre-K first floor, and then their dedicated pre-K play that you can see in blue on the bottom there. So this option, even though with the building is permanently connected, you can walk from one to the other. The pre-K component would have doors and would allow access via card. It's not just a free flow, 3rd grader can walk into the pre-K component. There are control points to keep pre-K within its own zone, but still allow that back and forth if needed for emergencies, events, student services, etc. For that component. The 2nd floor of it now would be open to allow that free flow so students and staff could utilize those shared spaces within that 2nd floor zone.
One other thing I just want to add here too, the intent and the rationale for moving the preschool over. Again, when I started this, I said we were looking for a way to address the space shortage at both buildings with one project. So by moving the 5 preschool classrooms out of H. Olive Day to here, as well as the special ed offices, we create 6 or 7 open classrooms at HOD that will allow us to accommodate the growth in student growth there. So instead of doing 2 additions with one project, we can address the needs at both buildings.
Does this expansion or movement of the pre-K build in additional pre-K classrooms so we can expand that program?
It would give us the potential to do that, although our enrollment in pre-K is already growing. We have 5 current classrooms in this build. We could potentially have 7. Now, that said, the projections for enrollment growth, we expect the pre-K to grow commensurate with all the other enrollment. So I'm not sure that will, we're projecting it won't eliminate the full wait list for pre-K. We will still have a wait list, but it would allow us to bring some more students in, as well as meet the needs of students that are enrolling, that are pre-K age, that we're required to provide services.
Okay.
So looking at modular options, option 1, and we can come back to any of these if there are any specific questions. So option 1 here is, again, it's trying to get that apples to apples comparison, locating the modulars in similar fashion of connecting the two wings of your current existing facility. So a couple things to note about this is, without getting into the weeds too much of building code and all that other good stuff, to physically connect modular classrooms to an existing building, there are a lot of hoops you have to jump through. It can be done, but there are some hoops. What I mean by that is cost. There's going to be a significant increase in cost because you need to create firewalls, you need to create separate standalone structures. There's a lot of provisions. So what this option here, to truly get that apples to apples comparison, it is connected. However, it's through some vestibules, there's a bunch of sets of doors, and ultimately you're going through zones and areas to get to another modular component of it. First thing you'll see here is the shape of it looks completely different than the other version. So floor plans start to emphasize really what our constraints are. Modulars, think about it as Lego blocks, Duplos. We have a kit of parts, or rather 2 parts. 14 by 66 or 14 by 49, and we stack those to fit classrooms and or spaces. So that's where this form comes from, and then we add or take away walls internally to make larger spaces or smaller spaces. So that's where this configuration comes from here. A couple items to note again, and we tried to keep parity between all of these options. So all the modular options are as close to 36,000 square feet, same number of programs and spaces for comparison purposes. So this here again, floor 1 would be your pre-K component, floor 2 would be your upper grades for that addition. One thing to note is for these spaces here, because of that slight separation, the modulars are configured a little bit differently in that the upper grade would be one entire grade rather than splitting up and going, okay, here's a 3rd grade classroom, here's 2 5th grade classrooms, here's a 6th grade classroom, because of the circulation and because of what has to be done internally. So all of those shared spaces, like meaning there wouldn't be a science lab in the modular classroom. That would remain utilized over here by another space. So it would be 1 grade level in the modular classrooms.
Okay. Because again, in modulars where they're not connected, we don't want every child packing up to go to art. So it doesn't make sense to put those common spaces in the modular. So that's why we made that shift and adjustment.
Site plan, very similar. Again, relocating the access road, dedicated play, parking and loop, very, very similar to the permanent build because it's in pretty much the same spot. Option 2, and we're going to go a lot quicker through these because it's the same concepts as the other 2 options. Option 2 is taking that same area, pulling it out to avoid that access road, and we've changed the shape to be an L shape to fit better within the existing constraints of the site. You can see how it starts to fit. One item, pretty noticeable right away, it's detached from the building. You got to walk across the parking lot, sidewalks, etc. to get from the existing to the modular component here. Again, pre-K on the 1st floor, upper grades on the 2nd floor. 3rd option, okay, what if we take all that, put it on 1 level, doesn't fit out back like I mentioned, so it's going on the field out front. You can see site plan wise, Again, a lot of this site plan is actually utilizing existing parking, but there is a couple new traffic drives and such. Dedicated play in the middle, all options have the required dedicated play, but there are some limitations based upon travel distances, etc., and just having students walk from the existing building outside to the modulars. So those are the 4 configuration options. Within that, we have another round or another level of estimating. So modulars, what we looked at was really 2 types of finishes, a level A and a level B. The level A, put it out there, it's more expensive, but it's more durable. Level B, less expensive, less durable. So a comparison between A and B. A, permanent foundations. B, you're on piers. A, you have fiber cement siding. B, it's texture 111 plywood that's on the outside. A couple other items. A is aluminum windows. B is vinyl windows. Down here in finishes, porcelain tile on the floors in the bathroom for A. For B, it's VCT. So you can start to see, yeah, you're still getting the same spaces, but your finishes are different, and ultimately durability is different based on those finishes. A couple other items down here. Mechanical is another item that is different. For A, is utilizing air source heat pumps. B is wall hung units. So that's the best way to describe it is if the units you typically see in like hotel rooms that are through wall, that would be level B. Level A are larger units on the roof that would feed multiple rooms. So those are the 2 differences in levels of finish. The reason why we bring that up is because there's obviously a price difference. So now back to the same matrix where everything landed from a pricing perspective. Again, starting left to right. Left, building addition, the permanent building addition. This was re-estimated based upon the year later for escalation. So the current rate right now is $37.9 million for the permanent building option. Option 1, level A or level B, depending on what was selected, 34.9 or 32.2. So you can see $2.5 million approximately for the different finishes. Option 2, 30.4, 27.6, and then option 3, 31.3 or 28.5. Again, those are all in comparison to back to this number here. So yes, they are less expensive, but it's okay, what is the trade-off for durability, for educational delivery, etc. So the task here was to lay out what configuration would meet the needs, and then where they ultimately land within the total price.
Justin, can you just give an overview of the longevity or expected lifespan of each of the solutions?
Yes, so permanent building addition, so when we say that, it's poured foundations, metal stud, steel superstructure, etc. Basically what this building is here. It's a 50-year building. Modular options, depending on which level of finish you choose, that changes the life expectancy. And again, it also relates back to the maintenance plans. But I would anticipate a level A finish, the more expensive durable finish, would be between a 15 to a 20, possibly up to a 25-year durability, depending on ultimately the maintenance and the wear and tear on the building. So approximately half, we'll call it. With a level A finish to a permanent building.
And level B is 15 to 20?
Level B is, yes, it's even less. Yep.
Can I ask a quick question? Because on option 3, I saw something that maybe I missed on the others. It had like a dedicated drop off for pre-K. Do the other options have that separate like pass-through drop off? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're talking about like from
Yeah, I guess so. It was like very distinguished on option 3. So like that it's separate from the other drop off of the
Yes.
other grades. Okay.
So yeah, here's option 1. This is for pre-K.
Okay.
That is the pre-K entrance, and it's the similar configuration for the permanent build. So
Okay.
yeah, the intent is pre-K traffic is in the back,
Yeah.
and only pre-K traffic.
Okay.
Yep. One other point on this slide here is that throughout the process, there are additional capital improvement items that were notified, that we were notified through facilities and maintenance of just keeping a building running. And what we did, we had estimates conducted for these 4 items that were identified. So standalone of the building project, it's replacing the mechanical system chiller, which is over by the gym. It is replacing all the existing rooftop units within the existing Freeman Kennedy, existing playground updates, and then replacing the fire alarm system within the existing building. So those were 4 separate items that we priced on top of the actual addition component for the project.
And just the history on that, when we were preparing to bring forward the brick and mortar recommendation to the town back in 2022, many of the systems at FK have a 10-year life expectancy and we're at end of life, and they're limping along. In consultation with the town, we were asked to price whether there'd be a cost savings if we did a building addition to replace those when we had a team on site, a crane on site, and to save costs on mobilizing a team for those. So those were priced. Those have nothing to do with the building project, but those are long-term capital needs the town's going to have to address. Our rooftop chilling unit, the fire suppression system, all of those things, because they're end of life. So those were just repriced because if the town chooses to consider doing some of those to save mobilization and bidding them separately to save costs, we wanted to have that information. But they do not have to be done as part of the building project. All right. So after reviewing all of the options and talking also about educational programming impacts for each of the options, the school building committee took a vote at our last meeting and are recommending to you tonight to bring forward option 1, which is the permanent building addition, as a final recommended solution to the Norfolk School Committee and to the Select Board. And they are also recommending to bring forward a warrant article to request moving forward with the ask for design funding to support a brick and mortar addition at the fall town meeting. We have members of our building committee here tonight that are going to walk you through what they considered in making that final recommendation. So we can jump to the next slide, and I will turn it to our 3 building committee members.
I think Peter has a quick question.
Just, there was a footnote on that vote. What did that mean? Voting present?
Oh, I'm sorry. At the school building committee, we voted unanimously to bring the permanent building addition forward as the final recommended solution. At the second vote, we voted about a fall warrant article. The committee members all voted unanimously to support that. Justin Casanova Davis, our town administrator, voted present because he's going to defer to his board, the select board, on that.
Oh.
So he didn't vote for or against, he voted present because he's
Right.
deferring to the select board to make that recommendation. All right, do you guys want to?
I think Jason wants to go first.
Jason doesn't. Want to come together? We can get more chairs. Is it easier to come together? Come on up and we'll grab. We're really good at shifting space here. To be able to get the mic.
Yeah. I guess I can see here. Hello, my name is Jason Whalen. I am a committee rep on the school building committee, and this slide here will highlight some of the key considerations that we took into account to come to our final recommendation. So a lot of this is similar to what Justin had said. We did evaluate both detached and attached modulars. For the detached modulars, the concern was student safety, security. Students weren't able to travel between the buildings on their own. They would need additional staff to escort them. And in the event of an emergency, there would be a third site that would need to be established. Also, as you can see from some of the other layouts, there is a negative impact on student enrollment time because they would have to travel between these buildings. In the winter, they'd have to get their winter gear on and travel between buildings, and all that is just valuable classroom time that gets wasted. An impact on staffing and shared service delivery. This would just be an overall increase in staff and loss of field and play space. And for the attached modular, and all the modulars for that matter, the maintenance cost is higher for the heating and the cooling. The longevity, like Justin had said, is not close to what the brick and mortar offers, and it's got a higher long-term cost for that reason. And for the brick and mortar, it's a single campus, much safer, attached, no negative impact on time learning. Staffing and service delivery models remain the same. Maintenance costs are more efficient, and longevity is 50-plus years. So that's it for me.
We'll move this forward.
Next slide.
You can do the next slide.
Hi there, Mike Ryan, community member for the school building committee. I've been a resident of Norfolk for just over a year, a little over a year. So why move forward now? As we looked at the different options and also the continued growth in enrollment for both Freeman Kennedy as well as H. Olive Day, we believe that it's important to move forward as quickly as possible. There's both strategic and, I think, fiscal implications from putting this off further and moving it down the road. First off, again, there's significant, as Superintendent Alardi mentioned, there's significant enrollment increases for both schools. Personally, moving to the town a little over a year ago, I have 2 4-year-olds, and we look to enroll them into the pre-K system, but unfortunately facing potential waitlisting, that wasn't an option for us. We would love to bring them into the Norfolk school systems, and having a larger space and addressing these issues would help that. We're, again, out of space at H. Olive Day. We will soon be out of space at Freeman Kennedy. And the timeline for that is, we're looking at 2026 based upon the demographic studies that we did. A building project will take 3 years, so if we begin now, what we're looking at is a timeline of 2027, and that just increases the further and further that we push this off, which obviously has implications to the capacity of schools, but also has real-world fiscal implications. As the further we delay this, the higher the costs of building increase. And I think we had scoped it at every year that we delay it, the costs increase $4 million. Justin, keep me honest, but I believe that was the cost.
Yep.
So we believe it's imperative that we move forward as quickly as possible. Yeah, and I mean, just to enhance on that, a delay in the project just will require the district to consider temporary educational spaces, which will also just add the burden to the overall Norfolk community. And then finally, as Superintendent Alardi mentioned, the demand for MSBA funding is pretty substantial throughout the state. So we believe there's a low likelihood of receiving state funding through MSBA. So we don't believe it makes sense to delay construction based upon that hope.
And I can just jump in and expand too, when we're talking, just to put real world numbers to the cost escalation. When we first looked at the first high level conceptual design study back in 2019, we were working with Flansburgh Architecture at the time, and they sent that out to their professional cost estimating company, PM&C, which stands for?
Project Management and Cost. So Flansburgh uses PM&C. We also use PM&C. They estimate 100% of our projects. They're in tune with the public market, so we rely on them for all of our projects. And it just so happens that Flansburgh also utilized them previously. So there's consistency there, which is nice.
Yeah. So they estimated the same project. It was the conceptual design was slightly smaller, 1,000 square feet or something like that, really minimal. But in 2019, the estimated cost from PMC for the structural costs, the building and site preparation costs was $12,945,463. and that's 5 years ago. That does not include the soft cost furniture, technology, equipment, because at that stage we only had a high-level design, so we couldn't include that. But the soft costs typically run about 25% of the total project cost. So in 2019, this project was about $13 million. When we had it re-estimated after the first feasibility study in 2023, it had jumped from 12 million to 27,988,000, so almost doubled. That market was dramatically impacted by COVID, so all building projects went up dramatically, but it did double in that period of time. From last year, May to now, it's also gone from 27.9 to 29.7. So you can see that the further we delay, the cost of executing this project is growing significantly. In addition, as Mike said, if we delay and can't open a new building to 2028, we are going to have to consider modular solutions. So in addition to building costs, we would have to do a phased construction, and we would also have to think about leasing modulars to accommodate the additional classrooms, because we do not have any additional space that we can access. We're out at each other day. As we enroll new students, it's very likely next year, if we have a kindergarten class like we have in the past of 8 sessions, we're out of classrooms. So we would have to be looking at the art classroom possibly moving, or another space being taken away to accommodate the growth. There is one open classroom at the Freeman, which has just been repurposed to accommodate our newcomers. We do not have any space, but as the larger grades grow up, we are also out of classroom space here. So the further we push out, the more likely we're going to have to look for temporary solutions while we're waiting for the building construction. Mike, you want to jump in? I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, so I think it seems like they've gone pretty depth for the most part. I mean, you can see it was a pretty iterative process where we started with, do we need to pursue this at all, just by going with the demographic study? And then we proceeded into all the options. I know we looked into lease space. That didn't really seem like a viable option. I personally was kind of shocked that the price difference between the modulars and the permanent building were as close as they were. I really thought we'd see some cost savings there. And so it really ends up being, you know, not a lot of savings for basically an inferior product, in my opinion. And I think that was basically the opinion of the committee in general, you know, between the life of the project, the overall cost, and as Jason ran through all the other considerations education-wise, it just seems like a permanent building makes the most sense. It's obviously up to the school committee here and the town to make a decision at the end of the day, but it seems like just based on numbers, classrooms, all the other things, it's not really an option that we could just say, oh, this is like a luxury the town's investing in, and this is just space the school system needs at this point. And it seems like that need will only compound over the next couple of years, and the cost will also compound. So that's why I think it's one of those things where if we start the process now, we'll look back and be pretty thankful for it. But if we kick it down the road too far, we'll look back and say, boy, I wish we pulled the trigger then.
Yeah.
And I think I just want to add that we have one of our largest grade levels I think we ever had. With the addition of the first grade, we have 9 classrooms now, which I think is the largest numbers that we've had. So just thinking about that extra classroom that you mentioned is being repurposed now at Freeman. Once that grade level moves up to Freeman, that is the extra classroom that will have to be allocated to accommodate 9 classrooms. Right. So if we have another one that's coming up behind that also has 8 or 9 classrooms, which is the numbers we're seeing, like we're going to run into that space issue, which is like one of the bullet points that you highlighted, is that Freeman County is going to be out of space in
and it's by 2026 with just our current enrollment. That's assuming we get no growth.
Right.
In 2 years, we'll be out of space there, yeah. All right, we can jump to the next slide. Anybody have questions for our committee members before we talk about what we're asking for?
So with the increase in costs year over year, like if everything moves forward and with the brick and mortar building, would we expect that cost to rise through the completion, or is that kind of like a set estimate that includes that built in?
Yep, yeah, so the estimates are based off of the projected construction schedule. So those numbers are based on the assumptions that it's going to move forward this fall, and then the timeline that we'll show in a couple slides here. If that gets delayed or pushed, then those numbers absolutely would go up, but those numbers are based upon the current schedule.
Okay. Then, I guess in the future, we'll talk about the amount for the warrant article, but is that included in the 37 million? Like, would that, if that moves forward, that's deducted from the full amount, or is that in addition to the 37?
So the 37 is the total project cost.
Okay.
And then the warrant article will be deducted
Gotcha,
from
okay.
that number.
Okay.
Because that 37 million included soft cost,
That
which
piece,
is
okay.
primarily what the warrant article is going to begin addressing.
Okay.
It does not include the capital items
No,
that
no.
the town might or might not
Which
choose
is
to
about
include.
7 million, right? The capital, additional capital is what, 7?
Do you have the slide on what the additional capital total was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just shy of 7.
Okay. And what do we expect in the, so if the town approves the warrant, we have the document development and the bidding phase.
Yes.
What do we expect to happen in the bidding phase exactly?
Yeah, so
I think that's the next
plan
slide.
moving forward is town warrant, or the warrant article value, 4.3 million. What does that include? That includes designer basic services, and that means through the entire documentation process. Really, we actually design, finish everything. We then send it out to bid, bids come back, and the intent is that, and the lining all the schedules is that fall town meeting of next year would have bids in hand from contractors. So that value at town meeting, when the construction cost is voted on, is an actual number. So that's what this warrant article does, is it gets us through the entire design with the entire design team. So not just everybody under our umbrella. So civil, landscape, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all of these people here. It also is additional site investigation. It's also bringing on an owner's project manager. So with projects of this size, over a certain threshold, you need an owner's project manager. So we've projected possible costs for them based upon industry standard. That fee could go up or down based upon future negotiations, but it's a ballpark right now. So that 4.3 covers all of the design, carrying all of it through bidding to give you all a bid in hand when you're asking the citizens, the residents, to vote to move into construction.
How many bids do you think we'll have?
Depends on the market. It depends, there's a number of different things.
So it's open to anybody, any firms that want to bid can bid?
So what we would, all of that is to be determined, and there's a lot of future conversations. What we would recommend for a project of this scope and size is that contractors need to be pre-qualified. So you can't get some guy out of their garage saying, yeah, I can build a 36,000 square foot school. No. There is a very special group of contractors that can actually perform this type of work. And so we would recommend, once the owner's project manager is on, with the building committee, to go through the process to pre-qualify all of those bidders to ensure that whoever you get bids from is actually capable of doing the work.
And there'll be some variation to it, but they'll see our estimate of 40 million. In any case, that's going to anchor all the bids to some extent, right?
Right, and as the project moves forward with all this additional investigation, geotech, et cetera, that number, that estimate it's going to do one of these things.
Yeah.
That 37 million was a projection based upon current known conditions. So as future investigation, as the design evolves, that number will go up, down, up, down. It will do one of these things, ultimately honing in on the final number that we would anticipate it at, and then ultimately the bids speak for what it will land.
And during this phase, are there any opportunities for cost savings to be
Yes.
discovered?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, there are. Through some of this and extra investigatory work, there's some possible cost savings. There's also cost savings. The projections, again, are based upon unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns once you start adding into an existing building. Norfolk has the opportunity, or the benefit here, it's a relatively new building. You're not tying into a 1950s building, a 1960s building, where you open up a wall, you have no idea what you're going to get. So begins to mitigate the risk. However, there's always risks tying into an existing building. So as the project and the process goes further along, that number will go from a range down to what the specifics are. But there absolutely are options for some cost savings measures throughout the way, depending on what ultimately is found within it. So.
And Justin, just to jump on that, for the past building projects that we did for the Freeman Kennedy building and the H. Olive Day roof, the building committee oversees the progress of that. Both of those projects, the Freeman Kennedy, which was a massive project, the H. Olive Day roof, which was a lot bigger than I anticipated project being, both came in on time and under budget. They were, I think the Freeman was almost $1 million under budget, and at the time, the total building was like 39 million. It wasn't what it would be now. But both of those projects came in under. So the committee can make decisions throughout the design phase of the work to shift spaces, or if we have different enrollment projections, to make modifications to that. So there's opportunities throughout that entire process for cost savings.
Yeah, and so the warrant article brings it through that bidding phase with bids in hand. Anything beyond that, so our services, all the consultants, the entire team moving through construction, that fee would be part of the larger construction fee. So this is approximately 80%, because that's where a lot of the lift is from our standpoint. So that's approximately 80%, the remaining of it, as well as furniture, fixtures, equipment, that's also included. Technology, contingencies for any unknowns, any of that extra stuff, that is all within that larger number at the time of bids in hand and all the other items to close out the project.
I just have a question. Has there been any consideration in regards to, like, if building this for several years, the disruption to the current classes, would they be planning on like doing the construction outside of school hours? I know that would be obviously hard, or if it's going to be loud and interrupt day-to-day activities.
Yeah, so the schedule and the cost is based upon utilizing normal construction hours.
Yeah.
So when school is in session. Yeah. There are ways to mitigate noise, dust, all that. The intent would be to isolate the contractor in the back. They would have their own access, everything would be fenced in, everybody would be badged, and they would not be able to access into the existing building during regular hours unless if they are escorted, essentially, if they need to tie in systems, etc.
It's pretty common that when districts are doing expansion, or often even new builds, that you have what's called occupied construction. So that has to be carefully planned, but it would be, because it is behind the building, it wouldn't impact the current instructional spaces, but we would have to do very careful planning around that.
And this was built as an occupied site.
Well, they were at Freeman. Yes, they were in the other building, but on the same ground as well.
So it's similar, it was an adjacent, the old structure before it was thankfully raised, was still there while this one was going up.
At AI3, all we do are schools. That's all we design.
Oh, cool.
And I would say 98, 99% of them are occupied sites. Whether it's in addition to an existing school or even a new school, you build 10, 12, 15, 20 feet away sometimes from an occupied school, just because that's the only available space.
Yeah.
So and again, that goes back to the pool of contractors who are pre-qualified. Again, it's a certain market, and certain groups are able to perform that type of work. So they're all well-versed in that. It's standard operating protocol for them. It's what they do. Now, with that being said, yes, it is a construction site, so there's going to be noise. But typically what we see is there's at least weekly meetings with principals and select staff to say, okay, this is what's happening this week. Do you have any testing? Do you have any other sound-sensitive events, or do you have events happening? To really work with scheduling. That way, they're not, and not saying we will get it, but that way they're not like jackhammering ledge out there during MCAS.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an extreme, but meaning that coordination does happen, because yes, it is going to be loud in some instances, but working together to try to mitigate that.
Yeah.
If this was done off hours or only during the summer, your construction duration is probably 3 times as long, and your cost is probably double and your available people to bid this is probably going to be a lot fewer just because it's so staggered and stretched out. So the most efficient way is to get in, get out, almost. And that's what we typically see with educational construction.
Can you talk a little bit about when you were designing this? I recognize if we go forward with the brick and mortar, we're asking the town for a substantial amount of money. It's a lot. And when you designed it, and I just want everyone to know that I think everyone recognizes that. When you designed it, is this state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line, everything? I know you do a lot of schools. The amount to me, and I've only looked at 1 or 2 projects, you know so much more than me, it looks like a reasonable number from the schools, the projects that are going on right now.
Yes.
So just clarification from you, this is standard, this is just what it costs right now.
Absolutely, this is standard. We actually compared, understanding that this isn't an MSBA project. But the MSBA does, and for those of you who don't know, it's the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They partner with a lot of districts to partially fund projects. One thing that they do a lot of things that are good, but one thing that will benefit you all is that they really track the cost of construction. It's all public information. It's all on their website since 2006, I believe, over a long time. It's all charted on the graph, and you can actually see the average cost of construction. Now, they don't plot on that chart unless the project is closed out. So the last couple years, you have to extrapolate the line. But we've done that a number of times, and we follow it. And where that line is trending, this project per square foot is actually lower than that line. So I would say it's on average of what a facility would be. One of the things that we actually did, we didn't have an initial target for budget when we were working through this process. And we listened to, what was the space needs based upon the demographics. Additionally, we looked at what this building was. And we matched finishes. We matched the building. So it doesn't look like an add-on or something being tacked on 10, 12, 15 years later. So it will look cohesive. And so that actually drove a lot of the conversation of, we're matching flooring, we're matching ceilings, we're matching the outside. So that drove some of those numbers for what they are. But in general, they're very, very reasonable and very, very average from a big picture standpoint, and as reconfirmed with that MSBA average cost per project.
Yeah.
And
I was just going to
during the first feasibility study, the initial very lovely design that was presented to us with the original subcommittee of the school committee, I think it was at that point.
And the district for the
We went
feasibility.
back to AI3 and told them that was certainly more than we needed, while wonderful, and that we needed to have a conversation about what an actual necessity floor plan was going to look like that would accommodate growth, but, not assume absolute worst case scenario. We needed to have a manageable growth expectation for a facility that we could move into, but that was going to pay attention to, the needs of the town financially as well. And I think we shrank that by a factor of like 10%.
Yeah,
something like
pretty
that.
close to that. The original design had project planning rooms where students could go to work on, collaborative projects. It had a lot of beautiful spaces. It had a interior in the courtyard, an indoor learning classroom, things like that are wonderful educationally, but the committee that we were working through the feasibility felt that given the town's finances, we needed to just build for what we needed. So all of those spaces were cut out, and the square footage went down from 41,000 and change to like 37,000. So we cut back a lot of that. So there isn't, and that's why I was trying to highlight, in that design where you see the art room and the computer room, those are existing spaces that will be repurposed for classrooms to keep the integrity of a grade level. We're just moving them. We're not building beyond what's needed. These are just essential spaces.
There's nothing else. I just want to say thank you to all of you very much. This was clearly a ton of work, and you all did the research, you know your stuff, so we really appreciate everything you all did.
We've got to spend a lot of evenings in this library. Thank you very much. So the next slide, again, what we were requesting tonight, based on the recommendation of the building committee, is for the school committee to vote to move forward an article to town meeting for the town to consider, to request funding for design services for a brick and mortar addition to the Freeman Kennedy School. The warrant language is on the screen and in your packet. It has been reviewed by town council as well as by bond council, correct, Justin? So this is the legally required language. Again, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds, or borrow a sum of money to be expended under the direction of the Freeman Kennedy School Building Committee for construction, reconstruction, architectural and engineering services, construction administration and project management related to a renovation and expansion of the Freeman Kennedy School, with the address including all associated incidental or related costs, and for the purpose of meeting such appropriation, to authorize the town treasurer with the approval of the select board to borrow said sum in accordance with chapter 44, section 7-1 of the Mass General Laws, or any other enabling authority to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore, or to take any action related thereto. So we are requesting the committee vote to move that article forward to the select board, who would then vote on whether or not to put it on the warrant. If it is posted on the warrant, we would also present to the advisory board, because they're required to weigh in for the town on their recommendations for all warrant articles.
And can I just ask a clarifying question on that? In your building committee meeting last week, you did a vote on the building, moving forward with the permanent solution, and bringing it forward for the warrant at fall town meeting. You just need the vote on the warrant at this time, right?
Yes, because they voted to bring that recommendation to you tonight.
Okay,
so,
perfect.
yeah.
Right, so I am looking for a motion to bring forward the warrant as written to the fall town meeting.
So moved.
Any further discussion?
I don't know if there's a lot of discussion. I just want to say thank you, to the community members, to you both who've spent a lot of time. Man, this has been like a 7-year in the works project. So I'm really excited to kind of see it come to this point. I think I have the youngest kids on this committee, so my kids will benefit, a lot more than other families. But I'm really happy and I'm excited, and I hope that the town is receptive to this. Again, not to beat a dead horse with what you guys have said, and I know you've been through this a lot of times. It's not a want, it's a need. It's something that the town is going to have to address either way, whether it's this or spending money on things that are temporary, which would be a shame, and kind of flushing money down the drain, whereas with this option we get something. I am a little bit nervous just with the financial climate, seeing other towns last year even just kind of have this consorted effort for a no vote on overrides simply to fund level services. So I am nervous about the receptiveness, and I really hope the messaging can get out there to the community that this is a need. And I don't know if it's parents who kind of take it upon themselves for a push for yes, if there's some sort of campaign for no. So I hope there's not a battle for it, but I hope we're ready for to drive that home, if there is.
We do have, so just a couple of comments on that, and I think, we all share the concern. We know it's a difficult time, but it is a critical need.
Yeah.
And for cost reasons, but also for educational programming.
Yeah.
Our music program looks different right now because it's on a card. Our program would be very different if we didn't have that space. So it is a critical need. We do have a building committee website that we are almost ready to launch, that will have the entire project history from 2017 to now, all of the presentations, all of the meetings, the projected timeline, projected costs, everything for anyone who wants to know everything about this project. It'll all be in one place.
I see you're doing a tour too.
Yes, so we can do that. And we can have posters that would have a barcode where people can scan to get to that site.
Yeah.
Campaign finance law would require us, we can't advertise unsolicited on the building project because it is going to be a ballot question. There are structures where people can establish a ballot committee to distribute information on a potential ballot question, but we are somewhat restricted. We can make the information available for people who are looking for it, and we will have that ready. But we can't just proactively.
Community members on their own could take up this initiative and push for yes. Okay, we just can't as.
We can't as,
committee.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll add thank you as well. I mean, this was a long road and so much, unpacked and looked at. I think also share the concern about the amounts involved and just the general town absorbing and understanding the context of those amounts is going to be really important to educate them about and help them understand kind of what's behind the numbers and why the numbers are what they are.
Yeah.
I think there was discussion of some forums, open discussions, open Q&A sessions, things like that.
Yeah, the building committee has set 2 evenings for public forums to present all of this information. I think it's October. Oh, Justin has a slide. He's so good. He always has a slide. A joint presentation to the select board on September 17th, community forums in October and November. We will likely host one of those at the H Holiday Day so we can do building tours so people can see the space needs. And then we will have an additional meeting for the advisory board that will be recorded as well, but we don't have a date for that until it's submitted to the warrant.
Yeah, it's a very short turnaround.
It is.
Wish we had a little more time, but we'll work with it.
Yeah, I do understand the need to do it now, though, especially with the projections. I wish there was a perfect time to do it, but having served on the budget committee for multiple years, I don't see
it coming in the near future.
It coming in the near future at all. I would hate to run out of space and be scrambling. That would be worst case scenario. That'd be like your AC going in July, and you're paying a premium, and you're in a rush, and your money's not being well spent there when you're rushing. And I think this is very thought out. You've made a compelling case of why the brick and mortar makes most sense for the town, why right now it makes the most sense to bring it forward to the town and to let the people weigh in. And
Yeah, and Lisa, I will say, the committee last week even were batting around and really discussing, what are the pros and cons of doing it now versus waiting till the spring? And as a committee, that's a whole year, it's not just 6 months. And so, we would be facing potential extra cost. And so I think the group was really thoughtful about those things, so I appreciate you recognizing that.
Yep, I mean, and just as someone I haven't been working on it as long as Ingrid, but I'm close. I'm on her heels, right? And so I would say that it has been a pleasure to work with this building committee. It was really valuable for, I think, myself and probably also for Ingrid and everyone else who's been working on it for a while to go through the exercise of seeing the issue through a new gaze and watching other individuals sort of assimilate the information that we just kind of knew and look at different solutions that might be available and what the timing implications of those might be. So I am loath to ask anyone for funding of the size that we're contemplating here. But I would not be supporting it if I did not feel that it was necessary, and I have the benefit of some perspective as a district parent insofar as, while Lauren has kids that haven't quite crossed the threshold yet, my last child in the district will be leaving this spring. I have a child who, when he was in first grade, there were 5 classrooms, and that was less than 10 years ago. And now there are 9. So, I mean, I think it's clearly, visibly, palpably an issue for the district, and I look forward to having an opportunity to talk about it more.
And I would also just want to thank the building committee members who gave a lot of time for our meetings. I think, as Majora said, it was really good to have people ask challenging questions and push us to consider things that we hadn't thought about. We had really rich discussions. I learned a lot, and I enjoyed working with all of you. And if this project moves forward, we'll be working together a lot over the next few years. So, because the charge is for them, if the project goes forward, to remain on the committee to oversee the construction in next phases.
Any further discussion on that? So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Congrats, guys.
Thank you very much, everybody, and you're welcome to stay for our compelling meeting, but if you have other exciting things tonight, you don't feel you need to.
Hopefully we can do the rest.
All right, the next item that we have for tonight is, as we prepare for Fall Town Meeting, last year during the budget process, we were, like all town departments, struggling with balancing our budget with limited revenue and projected funding available. In order to reduce our budget to come in with a budget ask that the town felt that they could support, we cut several positions, and we also only half-funded the ELA adoption for the ELA program. We knew that cost was $200,000. The committee voted to just put a half of it in the operating budget, and we did sign a contract that would allow us to pay that over 2 years if we had to, but the committee also, in conversations and collaboration with the town, talked about potentially bringing forward an ask for a capital item to fund the balance of the ELA program. That's what many districts in this region have done because it was a mandate from the state. So we had, where we left it last year was we were going to go forward with an ask for the balance, the other $100,000 for the ELA program to Fall Town Meeting as a capital request, one time. It is a one-time expense. We don't update the program annually. We lost our whole audience. Sorry, that's okay.
Even you, Justin?
Six, right here.
Okay.
So I am looking for a vote from the committee to support moving forward with our original plan of requesting the $100,000 for the ELA adoption as a capital work.
Are we on?
I jumped ahead, I'm sorry, I'm talking about Exhibit 7.
You went to 7, okay.
Let me backtrack, sorry about that. Chapter 70, again, in preparation for Fall Town Meeting. Chapter 70 is the vehicle through which the state provides funding to towns and municipalities to support educational costs. The budget, when it was developed, we made assumptions of what the town had available in estimated Chapter 70 revenue to support our operating budget. After the budget was approved, the state voted and appropriated a higher per pupil reimbursement for Chapter 70 than they originally had. So it went from, I think it was like $73 a day to $103 or something like that. It was about $30 per pupil. For regional school districts like King Philip, when Chapter 70 funds get increased, they go directly to the regional district to reappropriate into their operating budget. For towns that don't have a regional structure, the additional Chapter 70 goes to the town to support educational costs. So when that additional money came in, we had talked at the select board about anticipating that the town would restore that additional money because it is appropriated for education and for educational costs to the operating budget. We voted in the spring to add an additional first grade teacher in anticipation of that additional money. The select board at that meeting in May did indicate that they agreed that Chapter 70 was for educational purposes and anticipated we would be coming forward with an ask to restore the additional Chapter 70 to the operating budget. So I'm looking for a motion from the committee to move forward with requesting that the additional Chapter 70 funds the state allocated for educational purposes that are sent to the town be reallocated to the Norfolk Elementary budget.
I move that the additional Chapter 70 funds, that we request the additional Chapter 70 funds be allocated from the town to the schools.
I'll second. Any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the next item is the use of facilities report. This is just per policy. We update the school committee every year on our use of facilities, so it's rental revenues. Again, we rent the gym, we rent the gym, or the multi-purpose room at the HL day to different groups, and there's different rates depending on the nature of the group. In 2022, we stopped that because of COVID. We weren't bringing outside groups in. In 2023, it bumped back up a little bit. We had about $7,500 in rental revenue. There were some costs of building repairs and custodial overtime charged against that, but we had a balance that we brought forward. So you can see we were negative, now we brought up to 5,500 in rental revenue. After those costs, for 2024, rental revenue is about 7,200. Again, we had some additional building repairs and maintenance that we charged to that. We do not have in our budget an extraordinary maintenance line. That was eliminated years ago, so we do use rental revenue for unexpected repairs. So you can see where we are at this point based on the rental revenue. There's detail in the back if you want to see who's renting the building and what rates, but that's available for you. Any questions people have? No? Okay. All right, great. Capital requests. So I already previewed this for you earlier. This is the request for the ELA, the second portion of the ELA adoption, the $100,000 one-time capital investment for the town to support that and offset the cost of that implementation. Knowing that we are probably heading into, we did have the option of carrying it to 2 years. We are mandated, we have to have a new math program adoption next year. So the likelihood of the operating budget being able to absorb the costs of the second half of the ELA and a math program are pretty low. So I recommend we move forward with the capital request for the ELA.
Looking for a motion to move forward with a capital request to fund the remaining cost of our ELA program.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. And this probably should have been under you, but I'll turn it back to Lisa.
So we all did Ingrid's assessment, and I appreciate you. I'm still getting used to these. I can't see anyone. It's too early. Appreciate you sending your comments. What I did is I consolidated all the comments. If someone said the same thing, basically I just said it once. For the ratings, I took an average of what everyone said. So I'll just read some of the salient points and walk through the review. Dr. Alardi's performance over the past year has been both diligent and impressive. Her commitment to making meaningful headway towards her goals despite numerous challenges has solidified her reputation as a thoughtful and effective leader in our district. She has demonstrated significant progress towards her goals, successfully adopting and implementing the new ELA curriculum, updating the district's emergency response plans, and completing a new demographic and feasibility study. It's just important to note now that some of the elements of the goals are still in progress because we are only in year one of the 2-year cycle, but she's clearly laid a solid foundation for their timely completion. And the achievements are particularly impressive because we have, as you know, a constrained budget, we made staffing cuts, we have space issues at HOD, and then the unexpected and ever-changing demands from the state regarding the shelter. But despite these obstacles, Dr. Alardi has remained a steady leader and has been guiding the district with a calm hand, and we look forward to her continued success in leading the district forward in the future. We have, all her goals are progressing, and I did put in under each goal, they're on track for successful completion, and the district improvement goal to do the demographic study and feasibility study, as well as the emergency response plans, those are substantially done. So on track to have everything complete, if not an early completion, for next year. And so those were progressing across the board. And then for performance on standards, Dr. Alardi got exceeds for every measure. For instructional leadership, she sets clear goals that foster student growth and academic achievement. She ensured a thorough vetting and successful adoption of the ELA program, and the close and collaborative relationship she has with Vicki, the assistant and superintendent of curriculum instruction and assessment, always ensures she has a strong pulse on best instructional practices and student performance. She oversaw the district equity audit and the benchmark and baseline report, and used those reports and actually put action behind the data that came back out of them to drive instructional and educational decision-making and priorities. And if anything, I feel like there's so much going on behind the scenes, you should feel free to share your work in progress in this area even more.
And I just want to, just again with that, as I said at the last school committee meeting, Vicki has been the core person leading the research review for the ELA and the adoption. And my role in that is really partnering around securing the funding, supporting our administrators with the implementation, calibrating our expectations for classroom performance. But she did an outstanding job of leading that, so I want to make sure she is credited as well.
For management and operations, Dr. Ilardi strives for operational excellence. She's worked with the school committee to develop and promote an educationally sound budget despite significant financial constraints. She offers resourceful solutions and reasonable modifications, all while keeping the mission of the Norfolk Public Schools top of mind. Her management of fiscal systems is exemplary, and she has a strong command of the numbers. She also consistently partners with the town while at the same time always advocates for the needs of the school community. Despite significant space constraints at H. Olive Day, Dr. Ilardi has played a pivotal role in facilitating creative solutions to work with the existing space while planning ahead for future growth at the same time. She was instrumental in the process of securing funding for additional feasibility studies associated with increased enrollment and the study of proposed facilities expansion. Family and community engagement. Dr. Ilardi makes consistent efforts to improve and facilitate family and community engagement. Examples include her work on the school building committee, scheduling the community forum, discussing the equity audit, fostering the formation of an LPAC, and maintaining excellent relationships with school partners like the CPAC and the Norfolk PTO. She consistently meets and communicates with other stakeholders like town management and government, including the select board and a town administrator. She provided strong leadership, engagement, and communication following the announcement of the opening of Bay State, and worked collaboratively with the school community, faculty, administration, as well as her educational and governmental counterparts at the municipal, regional, and state level to identify the potential educational impacts and propose and implement solutions. She always made herself available for calls or meetings with community members and successfully planned and executed an education-focused information session. We're confident she will continue to make herself available to families with concerns and will respond with productive solutions to ensure all family concerns are treated fairly and maintain a positive learning environment focused on academic excellence. When it comes to professional culture, she ensures a top-down culture of respect, transparency, and collaboration, maintains open lines of communication with faculty and staff across the district, and consistently meets with faculty and staff, including the Director of Special Education and the newly hired H. Olive Day principal. She also regularly speaks with the KP superintendent. She has established and continues to foster a collaborative and open relationship with the Norfolk Teachers Association, including regularly scheduled meetings with NTA leadership and monthly roundtables with administrators and the NTA. So all those standards, she was given a ranking of exceeding and an overall rating of exceeding, and Dr. Ilardi continues to provide exceptional leadership to the Norfolk Public Schools.
Thank you very much. And I do also want to just again give Vicki credit. The equity audit, the finding of the need for an LPAC came out of the equity audit work, but Vicki and the assistant superintendents in our partner districts are continuing to lead that forward. So that was a great partnership. Also another way that we are working collaboratively with our partners. So make sure that she gets credit for the work and effort she did.
Thank you, but it's a team effort. It's a team effort, definitely.
I wish we could write highlights.
I'll make sure that's in her evaluation.
I appreciate it. I feel the love. Thank you.
So I think you need a vote to accept the...
Okay. I'm looking for a motion to accept the superintendent evaluation as written.
I move to accept the superintendent evaluation as written.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, thank you.
Thank you all for the feedback, and I know it takes a lot of time to write evaluations, so thank you very much, because I know you didn't have a lot of turnaround time on that, so I appreciate it.
Happy to do it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, moving on to committee reports. Do we have anything from policy?
Well, nothing to look at, but coming attractions. We have been looking at our policies surrounding compliance with Title IX and updates that may need to be made to our existing policies to bring them into complete compliance with existing laws and regulations. Around that, I would anticipate in October having 2 policies brought forward that have just incidental changes, as in we're taking out a word that shouldn't be there that somehow made its way in when the original policy was drafted. That's the word, extra the. And then in addition to that, three actually other sub-policies that will require a first reading in October most likely because they're going to be updated, expanded upon, consolidated in some ways, just more than an incidental change. So that's what we've been up to.
Budget met yet?
No.
No, coming attractions. Probably have to schedule our first meeting in October and November.
Norfolk
Building committee, I think we've talked about.
Give me the floor. I think you've heard enough about the building.
And then King Philip, we had our meeting last night, smooth start to the school year. First home football game is this Friday. Homecoming is Saturday, September 28th. The strategic plan that the district put together is now available, and they did a nice interactive PDF. And the school committee approved its goals. The goals of the KP School Committee will be support the ongoing development of student-centered learning to increase engagement, improve behavior, and elevate academic performance. Another one that is around strengthening two-way communication between the school district families and the tri-town communities. The next one is around ensuring fiscally responsible budgets and developing a capital improvement plan. And the final one was supporting social emotional learning to promote self-awareness, responsible decision-making, instill a culture of wellness, and a sense of belonging. So that is it from KP. Do we have any liaison updates? I don't know if anyone's had a chance to reach out and connect.
No, well, other than in person, but I look forward to hopefully going to attending the first CPAC meeting, I think in October. I can make it work, so looking forward to that engagement.
Great.
I reached out to the Norfolk Community League, had a good conversation with them about how we can kind of strengthen communications. A lot of the events that they put on for the community are directly interested for the kids in our district. One of the things coming up is the haunted train ride, which is actually moving to the train this year versus the car crawl, so that's exciting, and tickets went on sale tonight. But Kendra had mentioned a couple things, some good ideas, and maybe we can go through them, just kind of incorporating calendars or ways to reach out to community members, especially, you know, families in the community that might not be on social media. A lot of like their promotions for the things, for their events go through like Facebook and such, but maybe even with all of our school partners, kind of having a cumulative calendar that's accessible on our school web page that says like the events, and maybe kind of post it at the beginning of the year, so that like hopefully when multiple school partners are creating their events, they're not conflicting.
Good idea.
So maybe we can discuss something, or including some of their stuff in like the newsletters that go out, just because again, a lot of these things might be of interest to the kids. They do a lot of, I think their candy give back in November, so
I like that one.
there's a lot of things coming up in the fall.
Exactly.
And school partners can send things out, and so sometimes they do send them, and we'll put them in the Wednesday's words.
Okay.
But I also think the idea of a shared calendar might be helpful. If we made it available, they could have the option of posting their events or not.
Yeah, and
I'll talk to the
I know
team
like
about that.
a lot of the seasoned kind of families know who they are and like what they do, but I see like my daughter just started kindergarten, so I see a lot of like the new families coming in for the first time, like are kind of blind navigating like where are all the things, what do they do, like how do I get involved with them? So just
Great.
different ways to do it.
And I think we with the equity committee, we're working on putting together like a new family resource,
Yep.
and we had to table a little because the summer
I know.
kind of went
No,
south.
okay.
But we will be getting back to that work.
Okay.
And I have talked to the town about partnering with us on that.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, are those meetings resuming, or?
We will. We had to table things because we couldn't take on anymore as we
Yeah,
were
that's what I
planning for the
figured.
shelter, but we will be resuming that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I reached out to Andrew and of NCTV, Jack Campbell from Lions.
Yeah.
Have yet to connect, but yeah, communication's out, so we'll get connected.
Great.
Do you have anything?
No, I'm in the same spot as Peter, so.
Okay.
I'm working on meeting all of my goals around being a good liaison. I'm in progress.
I connected with Jen Wolf of the Norfolk PTO. The PTO always has so many fun events going throughout the year, and their first planning meeting is tomorrow night here. They do great work for our schools. They're looking for volunteer opportunities. They're looking for volunteers for lunch duty and recess duty, if anyone's interested in that. They're doing that Build Our Kids Success, the box program that came out from the Derby in partnership with the CPAC. They're getting ready to let the public know the details on how to sign up for that. They're creating our friend directory, 5th and 6th grade movie night. So a lot of really fun events, and they're going to run a booster-thon in October. So the PTO website is norfolkmapto.com, and Jen Wolf, her contact information is on that website, and so anyone in the community who has questions or concerns, like, she's a great resource to go to. So that's PTO.
Great.
Moving to new items, we have a school partner renewal, which I don't have. Do you have it?
I don't think that ever got turned in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll have to delay that. The Lions didn't get it to us, yeah.
Can we just delay? We don't have to.
Yeah, they had said that, but they never sent us the actual application, and we can't vote on it without the application, so we'll just carry that over until when we receive it.
Right, and then we need to approve the school committee minutes from our August meeting. So that is all included in your packet if you all had a chance to review it. If so, I'm looking for a motion to approve the August school committee minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And then our next school committee meeting is scheduled for October 8th, if that works for everyone.
Although there is a request for us to be part of a joint school committee select board meeting on September 17th. So I don't know if we want to see if people are available for that to talk about the warrant article. So we can present any requests for the warrant article as well as our capital request and any other items that people want to discuss jointly.
That should be fine with me.
Yeah, I was prepared to go to that anyway.
Yeah, same.
Got it blocked off.
What time is it, 7?
7.
Do they meet, I thought they met at 6.
Oh, that would be a surprise to me. I'll find out the time.
Maybe I'm thinking of
I
a
thought it was
different
7.
board.
I thought it was 7.
I think you're right.
Hope it's
I could be thinking of the. I
Hope it's
Time to be
I'd be
confirmed.
thinking of something else.
Okay, September 17th.
So a week from tonight. Yeah.
What do I title that? Just joint session, sorry.
Yeah, joint select board school committee meeting.
And that's at town hall, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then next we need to go into executive session. So I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and not to reconvene in open session.
I move to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and not to reconvene in open session.
I'll second.
And for this, to go into executive session, we do need a roll call vote, so you would just state your name and your vote.
Do we move or are we staying here?
We're going to go to the conference room.
Oh, okay, so we do the roll call before then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Medora Champagne, aye.
Grace Lockhead, aye.
Lauren Vivas, aye.
Peter Schwalbe, aye.
We tell them aye.
And that's it.